Well, good morning. How's everyone? Swell. Awesome. 3 out of 10. You look great. Thank you for joining us on this lovely, beautiful, warm, sunny day. They don't call us the California of Pennsylvania for no reason. But my name is Pete. I'm the youth pastor here. And what the band just played is by far one of my favorite songs because we've kind of grown up and heard this abstract idea of heaven being this communal, consistent praising of God, which is awesome. But till we get there, while we're here, I think it's important that we understand that our praise shouldn't just be about the song that we sing, but the life that we live. And the series that we're talking about is so vital to that. If you're new, we're ending the series today called Find Your People, and it's been so good. Initially walking through the early church, seeing the original necessity for community. And then last week, Melissa did a phenomenal job, per usual, walking through the practicality of how, by giving us 3 tasks of investigating, initiating, and investing. I do listen, Melissa, sometimes. She's always asking, questioning in meetings because I'm always, but anyways. When I first moved to Pennsylvania from the great state of North Carolina, they were ready. I'm front row next time. Last year, it felt like a year ago. Last service, 5 seconds in a woo from over here, so I appreciate you guys. When I moved from North Carolina, I was blessed to stay with the best host family for 6 months, rent-free. They let this long, lanky, Gumby-looking dude just come live in their house. They had no idea who I was. It was the Paneros. It took me a while not to say Panera. But they always said, they said their favorite part of the sermon was when it was over. And it wasn't necessarily a slam on Brian, probably, or whoever was speaking, but they said that they would always go out to lunch after, and they would have a serious, intentional, in-depth conversation about this question: now what? Now what? Because we've heard about this, now what? Because we as a church and a people have discussed this now what? So hopefully, from this series, maybe you've begun to find your home with people at CCV. Hopefully you've joined a group here at CCV. Hopefully you've found your people. My goal for us today is to answer the question, if you have, now what? Today I want to tell you the story of a University of Florida student. Her name is Ashley. What's her name? Ashley. Classic youth pastor. Call and response. You guys are doing way better than my middle schoolers. Little background on Ashley. Her parents got divorced when she was really young. Her dad is a very stark non-believer, doesn't want anything to do with God, Christian faith, church, nothing. Ashley joins him on that side. Her mom, however, was a believer. She remarried someone who believed in Jesus, and they had a kid. So Ashley has a stepbrother, and it's sort of like non-believing side, fully believing side, and Ashley is very much with her dad on the non-believing side. Ashley is a senior at the University of Florida, and she lives in an apartment with her boyfriend. And in the fall of her senior year, fall semester of her senior year, she was not feeling well during class, so she went home in the middle of it, and she found her boyfriend in bed with another girl. When I tell the students this story to my students, this is when the comes in, so I'll pretend you did that. North Carolina, let's go. So she kicks the big ugly boy out, as she should, and she puts up a notice saying she needs a roommate for her final semester because she doesn't want to pay the money and she doesn't want to live alone. Enters the story a girl named Krista. Her name's Krista, I'm not gonna make you say it again. But she also is looking to save money for her last semester of college. She's getting married soon and wants to save money. And so that's where the story really begins. Now, what I'm gonna read to you is from Ashley's diary. Before you jump on me, it's public. There's permission, it's on the internet, we're good, there's permission, I promise. So all I would like to say is, welcome to Storytime with Pete, okay? You can kick back, grab a couple popcorn, do whatever you want. Just envision this, all right? So, January 7th, senior year. Remember that date. What was the date? January 7th. My middle schoolers need to take lessons from you guys. Okay, so M, that's his initial, is officially out of the apartment, and I'm so glad he's gone. Though I've loved him for the last 2 years, and I still do love him so much, but I'm renting out one of the rooms because I really do not want to live alone. I rented it before winter break to this quiet girl named Krista. She seems sweet, but turns out she's a fruitcake. She's into all that God stuff. I don't know, you would never say that word. She's into all that God blank, but I'm pretty sure she's more wacko than Mom and Jacob, that's her stepbrother, or Jeff, her stepdad. I asked her what she did over winter break, and she said she went home but came back early for a conference in Atlanta, and I made the mistake of asking what kind of conference it was. Apparently, it was the greatest thing she's ever done. She said that God really changed her at this conference. Well, I do not link passion and God, but whatever. She said she got to worship God with 20,000 college students. So yeah, that's the best thing she's ever done. She needs to get out more, a whole lot more. But that's the fruitcake. Jeremy is her guy, and that boy hates me. We worked on a group project together last year for Children's Lit, and he made it clear that he thinks he is better than me. He'd get along well with my mom. He's a little holier-than-thou Bible thumper. I really hope fruitcake's not as crazy as he is, otherwise it's going to be a long semester. This semester is going to be a breeze. I'm taking 4 classes and 3 are electives. That's smart planning on my part. I'm going to party like it's 1999. Some of you remember what that is like. I'm going to do that this semester and have the time of my life before I can no longer hide behind the fact that I am in college. LOL. That means laugh out loud. I say that because my college roommate texted his dad LOL one time, and the dad texted LOL back, and he's like, why would you say LOL to LOL? So he sent a question, my friend sent a question mark, and the dad sent back LOL, lots of love. Just a little sweet, precious boomer moment for you all. That was for you, Rusty. 5 days go by in her journal. Em and I are back together. Well, easy. Well, kind of. I do love him so much. He came over last night. We hung out. We were all just drinking and watching a movie. The lights were out, and of course, Em and I quit watching the movie right after the credits. We are amazing together. He did not say anything about us being officially together again, but he did spend the night. He said he had class, and so do I, so I have to run. Okay, so it's been a few days since I've been here. I've been so busy. I went running today, and I was running past one of the buildings in the complex, and I see M's car. Then he comes out of, names this girl's apartment, and I just keep going. He had on the same clothes he had on when I saw him last night. He told me last night he needed a little time to figure out what he wants, so I was like, that's cool. But there's only one reason he would sleep at that blank's place last night. I cannot believe he slept with that. I ran an extra 3 miles and finally came home dripping sweat. Mind you, it's 40 degrees outside. I'd already taken off my jacket. I came in and went straight to the kitchen. Walking past Krista, pulled a beer out of the fridge and ice cream out of the freezer. Not too shabby. I jumped on the counter, drank my beer, ate my ice cream, and just cried. Krista asked me if I was okay, and I said, blank, no, I'm not okay. Fruitcake then grabbed another container of ice cream out of the freezer and sat down at the table. Why the HELL do we have so much ice cream in January? Seriously, there are 3 more containers in there. I really wanted her to just leave me alone, but since she wouldn't, I asked her, what is wrong with you? I mean, she clearly does not go to clubs. She does not drink. She does not go out. She asked me what I meant by that. So I asked her why she was the way she was, and all she said was, God. She said it was her goal to live a life that Christ would be proud of. I laughed. I couldn't help it, but the fruitcake was serious. I asked her if she's ever slept with Jeremy, the guy she's dating. She said no. When she gets married, she'll be a virgin. Wow, those are still around. She said they've been dating 3 years. I've not dated a guy for 3 weeks and not slept with him. I cannot imagine 3 years without sex. The girl is a fruitcake. She then said it was because she had a personal relationship with God, that she was saved. I do have to admit, she's different from the Christians I know, but she's still a fruitcake. But then she asked me why I was so upset, and I told her about M wanting more time apart and seeing him come out of his other girl's apartment. I cannot believe how much one guy can mess me up. I told her all about the blank he's put me through, about how he's used me and cheated me. And you know what? She did not give me all the Christian crap Mom always gives me if I mention him to her. Fruitcake just sat there and listened to me vent. She did not criticize me when I was done. All she did was say, wow. And she said, Ashley, I'm really sorry that he's done that to you. Then she did it. She asked me if she could pray for me. I laughed, jumped off the counter and said, I need to shower. After my shower, Krista was gone and I just sat on the couch and cried. I love him, I hate him, how is that possible? I should only hate him. But mainly, I cannot figure out Krista in her little Bible-thumping world. You know, she actually reads her Bible, like, a lot. I see it move around the apartment everywhere, from the kitchen to the living room, even to the office. I should be the enemy to her, the one she wants nothing to do with. But she does not seem to think she's better than me. It also seems that this God and Jesus stuff are real to her. I don't understand the fruitcake at all. January 18th. That was just funny. The fruitcake and I went running together today. I cannot believe she kept up. Who knew Christians could run? Amazing thought. We exist, okay? January 19th. Okay, so I have to find out what makes Krista so different from every Christian I've ever known. She does not look down her nose at me. She's really nice to me and actually says she just wants to be my friend. It does not make sense. No one ever wants to be Ashley's friends without getting something in return, especially not a Christian. God is not for people like me. And Jacob's supposed to be the only Christian who doesn't judge me, and that's because he's my brother. January 21st, 14 days from the very beginning. Okay, today I did it. This morning, Fruitcake and I were in the kitchen, and I asked her why this God stuff was so important to her. She told me it was because he truly loved her, and he was her closest friend. So I asked her what she meant by that. She said exactly what I said. She said, God is all about love, and God's love is the greatest thing ever. So then I was like, why do you live all perfect like you do? She laughed and said she was not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but she was forgiven. She said that at this Passion conference, the 20,000 people with no lives thing in Atlanta, she said she was reminded that God not only loves her, but also the rest of the world. He sent his son to die for us all, basically the Easter story. And I want you to envision Ashley is writing this out, word for word. Mom used to make me go to church all the time. Hated it. I quit going in high school. When I was in high school and able to stay at Dad's place all the time. See, God is not for people like me. God is for people like Fruitcake, Jeremy, and their friends. I'm way too screwed up for God to care about me at all. Fruitcake had to go to work, so we had to end our conversation. She said she'd love to talk more when she got home tonight, and I told her maybe. Well, after she left, I was on the couch when M came over and apologized for blank, 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 blank. But as he said, we are not together anymore. But he did say when he saw me running away, he realized what a big mistake he had made. He said he loves me so much, and I'm the only one he wants to be with. I really want to be with him. We've been through so much together. I cannot forgive him for sleeping with that. Again, besides he's not going anywhere in life, he is a professional student. I asked him to leave. I told him I cannot do this again. I'm moving on with my life. He left and I cried for a very long time. I do not need first, middle, last name. I can live on my own. I can live life on my own. Besides, I can get any guy I want. Who needs him? She comes back a second time that day. Okay, so I'm back again. S-H word. It's been a crazy day, enough to make me come back twice in one day. So now actual homework got done today. I cried, shopped, cried, ate, cried, ran, cried, and ate again. So you get the point, there was a lot of crying today. I did not answer my cell literally the 17 times he called me today. Well, I'm on the couch when Fruitcake got home. She sat down and asked me if I wanted ice cream. I could not help but laugh. We sat there in silence for a really long time, and then I asked her how much God was going to punish her for living with a screw-up like me. She just looked at me and said, Ashley, God really is not like that at all. He really does love us. I told her I knew all about this God stuff, and I was way too far gone, too screwed up to even think about God's kind of love. I'm not a religious nutcase like Mom or her family. As much as I love them, they're crazy. So she just said, okay, you need to hear this one pastor talk. So she pulls a couple DVDs off her shelf in the unit. She said they're just someone talking. There were sermons on DVD. I could not believe the Fruitcake had sermons on DVD. But I agreed to watch anyway, not like I had anything better to do. So the first one, the pastor talks about God differently than I had ever heard before. It was kind of weird. He made it sound like God was for everyone. He made it sound like the God that created the universe really cared about all of us. In another one, the pastor talks about how Christians do not have to hope for the best in the end, that people do not have to do enough good stuff to get into heaven. It made sense. Pretty weird, huh? Then the pastor started talking about grace and how God is a loving, forgiving God who wants to forgive us. It all made sense. I could hardly breathe. Seriously, I was sitting and oxygen was not flowing through my lungs. I feel you. The DVD ended, and the Fruitcake just looked up at me. I was crying and trying to regain control of my lungs and gather my thoughts. I asked her if what he said was true, that because of grace, God could love me, that God could even love the screw-ups. She said yes. Sounds so easy, but all we have to do is ask Christ to save us, and he will. I've heard of salvation my whole life, but never agreed with the whole deal that all I have to do is ask and everything will be okay. But then Fruitcake explained, That's where grace comes in. She said that because God is such a gracious and loving God that he forgives, that Christ took care of everything on the cross, and he did not just die, but most important, he rose again, Easter. And that Christianity is the only religion where we get to worship a God that has walked the earth, died, and rose again. So there on my couch in my living room, where a lot of fill in the blank has gone on, I decided I wanted what fruitcake had. I wanted what Jacob, Jeremy, Mom, Jeff all had. I wanted grace. So I asked Jesus in my heart. I asked him to forgive me for all the mistakes I made. I told God that I knew I had messed up, but if he would take me, I wanted to be a Christian. So there you have it. I'm a Christian. I feel like a huge weight has been lifted off my shoulders and I can breathe again. I feel like everything is going to be all right. I feel like I found something I did not even know I was looking for. And I know all this sounds crazy. I am sober, I promise. Fruitcake said she's been praying for me since the first day she asked if I was a Christian. Then we got out the ice cream. I'm going to get fat with fruitcake around. 14 days from I don't want a thing to do with God and faith. Do I want grace? She goes on to write about driving down to Jacksonville to tell her mom, the side of the family, and they were ecstatic. Her dad said she's crazy, but still loves her. And Fruitcake invited her to a Bible study a few weeks ago where she writes this. February 8th, I went to a Bible study with Krista, not Fruitcake, and that was actually kind of fun and cool. Everyone was like, hey, Ashley, and did not make me feel like all awkward and stuff. It was like I belonged there. They sang some songs which I did not know, and everyone else did, but it was cool. My favorite song, and she goes on to write about how they sang Mighty to Save, what we sang earlier. She said she just felt something in the moment. She started to cry. She said, I wanted to raise my hands. I did not. There's a lot of miscellaneous last semester of college business. And then she writes, on April 28th, Daddy and I went to the BMW dealership to order me a new car, which should be in at the end of June to be delivered at the San Francisco dealership. That's where her job was. Love my daddy. He's so proud of his princess. Jacob, Steven, and I went surfing today. Well, Jacob and Steven surfed. I laid on the beach and worked my tan. I have graduation pics tomorrow. Then I'm driving back to Gainesville after church in Sushi in Riverside. We're going to Sushi Cafe. And they did. And about 3 o'clock, Ashley was in an accident where she passed away. And unfortunately, the rest of her journal is empty. And the story of Ashley is a story of grace, but it is also a story of empathy and patience from Krista, from Fruitcake. Jesus placed all of the sin of the world on himself when he was on the cross so that we wouldn't have to bear that punishment. And unfortunately for you, when you begin to understand that, it uniquely positions you for everyone else who does not yet understand that. So my question for you, when it comes to finding your people, if you have, now what? How are you towards those who don't yet have people? Better yet, are you cognizant of everyone who in their right mind fully believes that they have no reason to believe in Jesus? And the way that you live your life will fully aid that belief, or it could potentially invite them to something different. There are 3 phrases that I want to share with you that I believe can propel us into the world, helping accomplish not just our mission here at CCV, but the one that Jesus called us to. For anyone who doesn't know, the Great Commission, Matthew 28:19, Jesus, one of his final words to us, he said, therefore, and go make disciples of all nations. That's why our mission here at CCV is to make more and better disciples based off of that. So my first phrase, the first point that I want you to memorize, write down, it's 2 words, you're gonna be fine. Be light. Be light. Matthew 5:14-17 says, you are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. So when I say be light, I want you to think light by life. People, and I want to reiterate this, people who don't yet have people have plenty of reasons not to believe in Jesus. You are individually called to be the light of the world so that they can be drawn to you, so that they can get to know you, so that you can introduce them to Jesus. Take this with an open heart. Please hear what I'm saying, but do not put the pressure on yourself to have your entire personality be 100% Jesus all of the time. God gave you your own personality. Surprisingly enough, the call to be light is the call to have something about you actually be interesting enough for other people to notice. So I apologize. Consequently, yes, part of being a disciple is not being boring. Being spiritual is that deep. Don't be boring. Be interesting. And you may be thinking, well, Pete, I thought being a Christian was being all in for Jesus all the time, 100%. Yeehaw, woo, I'm going to be on fire for Jesus. Please never say that phrase again. Ever. You have to be so careful with that phrase because a light, what does a light do? A light shines and it shows. You talk to a non-believer, what does being on fire do to them? It blinds and it burns. There's a stark difference. And that's why I think Paul says in 2 Corinthians 5:13, he says this so specifically, if we are out of our mind, as some say, it's for God. You're in here, hands are raised, worshiping God, but if we are in our right mind, it's for you. He is showing an awareness that to be a disciple is to be so cognizant of your light. Be aware when you are shining for others to see and when you're ignorantly blinding non-believers from truth. And I only say that because there are Christians that I do know who are so comfortable and so consumed forever with just their personal relationship with God that they are also the most unrelatable people to anyone else. That's the only reason I preface that. It reminds me of a quote that's always stuck with me and I want to share it with you. It says, don't be so heavenly minded that you're no earthly good. In the same sense, don't be so earthly minded that you're no heavenly good. It's kind of like we're living in the middle, like my sermon a couple weeks ago. Log on to YouTube and check that out, okay? If you were there for it. But does that make sense? Being a disciple is being aware, being intentional of who is around you and how you shine so that people want to know you more. And when they do, that is when you introduce them to Jesus. Paul also says somewhere else that he becomes all things to all people so that he may win some for the sake of the gospel. Being a disciple is being aware and being aware of how you shine. And the way we do that is by our second point, which is to be salt. Be salt. Right before, interestingly enough, right before Jesus says you're the light of the world, he says in verse 13, you are the salt of the earth. But if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. I've been most excited to talk about this today. Are you ready? This is the most spiritual thing you will hear all morning. When I say this, I want you to think salt by social. And I'm excited to expose some people. Who here knows someone or is someone who is just, you can't read the room in any social situation ever. You just say the wrong thing at the wrong time. Hi, Margaret. Let's say you know a friend, you know someone, right? This is the most spiritual thing you'll hear today. Part of maturing as a disciple of Jesus is throwing away any excuse you have for a lack of social awareness. Again, it's that deep, but it's that simple. Christians can have the purest intentions and the strongest faith, and most often paired with that is the worst timing to tell someone how good their God is when they are personally suffering and internally blaming God for that. Sometimes we just respond so strongly with the things that we feel we need to say, with the answers that we feel we have to give. What's funny about answers, and one of my favorite stats about Jesus, the Christ, the Son of the living God, the Messiah, the one who knows all, my favorite stat, he asked over 300 questions. He only answered 3. Why would Jesus, the man who knows everything, ask so many questions? It's because his life and his words were simple enough to make people notice, prompt them to think, and want just a little bit more. He was socially aware to prompt them to think towards a pain point or something that they needed, which he obviously was the solution for, but creatively, he prompted them to arrive there by asking a question as opposed to potentially standing on the street corner with a microphone. Again, do you see the difference? being socially aware. This is why salt is such an interesting thing for you and I to be called to. Salt is one of those things that you only notice when there's way too much of it or when there's absolutely none. This is why social awareness, again, is something we need to be cognizant of. Because unfortunately, as a disciple, you and I, we do not get to decide if or when someone believes in Jesus. One, that should take the pressure off. We don't get to decide if or when someone believes in Jesus. A person reaches for salt when they know they need it, but they can't reach for it if it's never there. Krista was the salt. Fruitcake was the salt. And she embodied what Paul talked about in Colossians 4:6. And when I show you this verse, this is what I envision you guys being out there where it actually happens. Colossians 4:6. Let your conversation be full of grace, seasoned with salt, so that you may know how to answer everyone. So the call to be salt of the earth is to be present, be so present, which happens by letting your light shine to show them. And when they reach for you, when they ask questions, you better be sure that you're ready. And that's my last point. Be light, be salt, be ready. And when I say be ready, I mean be ready by response. As a disciple of Jesus, we don't have to have all the answers, but I do think we have a personal responsibility to have our story ready to tell. Be ready to tell people who ask you how much your people, finding your people, how much your people mean to you, so that people who don't yet have people can see a place for themselves beyond their current pain. Just like Krista, her light was aware, like Ashley was very aware of her, but it didn't blind her. And her questions and answers always intrigued her to come back for just a little bit more. And overall, she was ready to respond when the person who wanted nothing to do with God had questions. She was ready. So some homework for you this week. You can work on writing out your story. Remember how God has moved and how you are today because of it. Because when it comes to making more and better disciples, rarely, if ever, does it happen here, there. It lives out there. It was meant to happen out there in real life, with real conversations, with interesting lives and intentional questions. So I want to encourage you to shine your light. Add something to the lives of those around you. Be a professional question asker. Be a professional ice cream eater. You have your story. Let God use it by being light, by being salt, and most of all, being ready. Let's pray. God, we are so thankful. We're thankful for the lives of Ashley and the discipleship of Krista. God, I pray that we wouldn't sit in the comfort of our relationship with you, but God, we would go out beyond these walls and we would be the expression of you that you've called us to be. But we would do it with mindfulness. We would do it with intention. We wouldn't blindly scream or say or repeat or quote. God, we would be intentional with every word, every syllable that comes out of our mouth based off of who you put in front of us. God, everyone we interact with has some deep sense of pain that you are longing to heal. You are dying to heal. You literally died to heal. Help us be that bridge. Help us be the light in people's lives. Help us add a little bit of salt and help us intentionally, personally, be ready for when that occasion happens. Help us be better disciples. We love you. Praise you in Jesus' name. Amen.